David Goggins is full of it. I have read his books, I have watched his videos, I have seen him interviewed countless times, and I have come to the distinct conclusion that he is completely and utterly full of it. What's he full of? He's full of grit. Yes, grit, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Grit is that intangible character trait that makes you resolve to push forward, to keep striving, to suffer, to endure, to do the things that you don't want to do. Grit is inevitably one of the factors that will distinguish you from your peers and the other people in your space. So grit, yes, what is it? So grit can be defined as, strength of character, courage, resolve. I like to think of it as the urge to keep on going when everything inside you says stop. Keep pushing, keep enduring. That is grit. It comes into play more times than you can possibly imagine. Whether you're starting an Instagram page, or you are becoming a marathoner, or you are just going to work every day, grit is what distinguishes good from great. If you're starting an Instagram page, a lot of that is just showing up every day and posting content. The algorithm will reward you for just doing the bare minimum, but doing it every single day. So when you get up and you don't want to post, go and post, because the consistency, the repetition wins you points on the Instagram logarithm, and it wins you points in the world. Going to work every day, even though you might not want to. Maybe it's snowy out. Maybe the roads are terrible. Maybe you're hungover, but you show up and you do what you said you were going to do, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you don't want to do it. That is grit. Goggins has a rule, and if you don't know who he is, I encourage you to look him up. He is a former Navy SEAL. He is a smoke jumper. He is an ultra marathoner. He is a best-selling author. He is all over the internet, and people follow his teachings because a lot of what he says really resonates with them. He does the things that are really hard, that are really difficult. He prides himself on being full of grit. And he has one rule that he likes to teach, and it's called the next second rule. And that basically means if you want to quit whatever you're doing, whether it's running or working out or just doing anything that's uncomfortable, if you can take the next second and put off your quitting until the next second, and then the next second, and the next second, gradually you'll push that barrier further and further and further out. You'll stick to the task, and you'll succeed in the end. I coach kids running. I coach middle school track. I coach cross country, and I have what I call the next step rule. And that is, kids that age, they run until they feel a little bit tired, and then they want to stop and walk. And I tell them, look, take that next step. Keep running, and when your body says, I can't run anymore, I can't keep going, take that next step. And then take that next step, and keep going and going and going and going. And inevitably, you'll finish the race, or you'll finish the run, and the amount of self-confidence and self-worth that you will have generated by just taking that next step over and over and over and over is incalculable. A lot of this is called hustle in sports. Maybe people aren't as physically gifted. Maybe they're not as technically amazing as their peers that they're playing against or competing against. But the will to keep persevering, to run as hard as you can, to keep going, to keep working, we call that hustle in sports. But it's also, grit in the real world. And I just want to talk a little bit more today about grit, how you can get it, where it actually resides at in your body. We've figured that out fairly recently, and how you can go about developing that sort of muscle that will get you through the tough times. So I think there is a good case to be made that if you keep showing up every day and putting in the hard miles, and keep setting yourself goals, keep attaining those goals, and keep going further and further, that's the way to tackle big challenges. So I saw an interview with another former Navy SEAL, and he said, getting through BUDS, which is their sort of basic training sorting process, Getting through buds is an 8-month long exercise in misery and hardship. And if you start your first hour at buds and you're absolutely incredibly miserable, cold, shivering, want to just curl up and die, and you think to yourself, I've got 8 more months of this, forget it. You're done. Like no one can process that amount of discomfort and misery over that period of time. But the trick is, you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to get to breakfast. That's my goal. And then when you get to breakfast, you say, I'm going to get to lunch. And once you get to lunch, you say, I'm going to make it to dinner. And once you make it to dinner, you say, I'm going to make it to lights out. And once you make it to lights out, you say, I'm going to make it to tomorrow. And you keep setting these small, bite-sized goals. You keep enduring, and you show some grit for those little periods of time. And those periods of time stack up one after another after another. And eventually, if you keep at it and you show a bit of grit, you'll reach your goal. You can apply that to any walk of life, any job, any challenge, anything that you don't want to really face. Chunk it up into small bits and bites. Make those your goals. You'll be surprised how many times you succeed. Now, grit is something that some people have lots of and some people don't have a lot of. It's something that might be seen as a intrinsic character trait. I'm here to tell you, and I think this is true, that there is an actual skill that you can learn, an actual grit sort of spirit that you can cultivate within you. And I want to talk a little bit about that now. We've found recently through neuroscience that there's actually a part of your brain, it's called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. Go ahead and look it up. That is what we've kind of identified recently as what we think is the source of will. Some people think it's the actual source of the will to live. And why do they think that? Well, they think that because they've found that in people that are struggling and they're making themselves do things that are difficult, that part of their brain seems to light up and respond when they're doing things that are unpleasant and that they don't want to do. So, for example, if you like to work out and you say, okay, I'm going to go work out every day, and maybe 1 or 2 days of that you work out and then you don't, that's not really targeting your mid-cingulate cortex. The mid-cingulate cortex is going to be activated when you're doing things you don't want to do. So if you go to the gym and you hate doing push-ups, right? Okay, push-ups, they hurt your elbows, they hurt your shoulders, but you do them anyway, that's going to start stimulating that anterior mid-cingulate cortex. If you don't like to do leg extensions and you do those regularly and you dread them and you dread them and you dread them, but you make yourself do them, that's stimulating that anterior mid-cingulate cortex, that part of your brain that's going to control the decision making that makes you do the things that are unpleasant. That area starts to grow. And when that thing grows and gets stronger, it gets more connections running to it, it gets more blood supply. That starts growing your grit, starts growing your will to persevere in the face of adversity. They've even gone so far, sometimes people are having a neurosurgery and your brain doesn't have any sensory nerves, so they can poke in it and you wouldn't feel anything. You would need these anesthetics for them to get in, but after that, they can poke around in there and you don't feel any pain. And that's why you'll see sometimes people that are having like brain surgery, cancer surgery, and they want to be very specific about the areas that they're targeting. So they'll run some electrodes in there and they'll stimulate parts of the brain to make sure that they're not touching an area or invading an area that's critical. So they want to scoop that tumor out, but they don't want to scoop out your ability to play the clarinet that you learned in 4th grade. So they have to be very precise with what their areas they're touching inside the brain. And what they have found is that when they stimulate the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, the people who are awake and they're talking to the doctors about what's going on, they'll say, what are you feeling right now? What sensations are you feeling? And this is amazing. They'll say, I feel the sense of a storm is coming, right? They're feeling that sense of dread, that sense of something challenging is approaching them, that there's something they don't really want to face is rushing toward them. Then the next question the doctors ask is, what does that make you want to do? Thinking they're going to say, makes me want to run away or hide. And these people have said, it makes me want to charge into it. It makes me want to confront it and go into it. And that's amazing. That's stunning to me. That there's this part of your body that you can actually target, develop, and grow that will help you make your sense of grit, stick-to-itiveness, perseverance get bigger and bigger and bigger. This is amazing science, and I think if we focus on this part of the brain, we can stimulate it, grow it, and make ourselves better. Now, how do you do that? Like I said, part of that is going to the gym or doing workouts or getting up and going for a run when it's rainy out and you don't want to do it. It can also be something like ice water plunges or cold showers or anything that's uncomfortable that you really would dread doing. Not that it's going to hurt you, but that is something you don't want to do, but you could do. Make yourself do it over and over and over, and you're going to find yourself stimulating this part of your brain. It's going to grow, it's going to respond, and it's going to make you a grittier, tougher, and more persevering person. It's going to help you in all different facets of your life. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this was interesting. Go look it up. Go look up Goggins if you haven't looked at him before, and go look up the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. It's amazing. It's out there for you to tackle and to grow and to get better with. And I wish you the best. Do good things, and I'll talk to you next time.